about uh, hello. Today we are going to discuss about the next protocols that are associated with uh, application layer. So first one is a DNS. First one is DNS. DNS, you are very familiar with this one. So I'll give you the best example. Now let us consider that if there are 1,000 houses, and these 1,000 houses you can easily identify with the help of number. But if the number goes into millions, what you will do? And how will you identify? Okay, this person is having this house number. This person is having this house number. Is it physically possible? So if you stay, let us consider that if you stay in a house number 10, so you will be recognized by house number 10, or 10 will be recognized by you. So this is what the problem. But it is easy to remember the person by name, and then we can easily communicate with him. So every time we cannot communicate with his house address, so we can communicate with his name, and that is quite easy. So for that purpose, this DNS came into existence. So to identify the entity, TCP/IP protocol uses IP address that we have already seen, which uniquely identifies the connection of the host to the internet. So IP address is required for connection to be identified at internet, but every time it is not difficult to know the name or to know the IP address. Instead of that, internet needs to have a directory system that can map a name to address. So so there is a huge internet today. So central directory system cannot hold all the mappings. So you just imagine your name and the house name, your name and house name. So millions of houses are there, and you are going to map it. So it will be quite difficult and quite difficult to remember all these data or hold these data. So for that purpose, the host needs to be mapped with a contact by the closest computer holding the needed information. That means if you are residing in a particular city, then that city computer will take care of your data. If you are residing in a particular area, that area post office will take care of your data. So that area post office will know all the information about you, and it will simply come to know that okay, this area or this IP address that belongs to me, and this house belongs to this person. So if then thereafter, whenever you are sending the letter with the name itself, the name that letter will also get, if that postman is very familiar with that area, instead of going for the address, exact number address, he will simply identify your letter by your name, and it simply delivers you to your home. So this is what the task of domain name system. So this method is used for domain naming. We'll understood what do you mean by domain name, what do you mean by domain. Very soon we'll understand this. So TCP/IP uses a domain name system client and a server to map the name to the address. So we have to map the name to the address. So the best example is whatever may be you are using the system, let us say Amazon.in. So Amazon.in is a different domain. So Amazon is the domain name, .in is the country domain name, like that. So this is how you can identify, okay, this is the Amazon.com is a different domain. So you can easily identify like this one also. So these domain names have a client and a server to map the name to the address. Now we'll try to understand how what is the purpose of DNS. So here it is the application layer, you are working on that. So the file transfer client is already there. You want to transfer the file, or you want to download the file from server to your system, then what you will be writing here, you will be writing the host name. Now let us take the best search engine is Google. One of the best search engine is Google. So when you write google.com, so your system will move to google.com. So this DNS client will try to understand the host name, and this host name will send a query to DNS server, sending that it is google.com. So server will send in response what is the IP of that google.com, IP address of that google.com, and this client will send this IP address to the file transfer protocol client, and this file transfer client will understand it, and the communication will take place, because the name is not understood by TCP/IP, but the IP address is understood by TCP/IP. That's why you will be requiring this kind of DNS system where you simply know it by name. So you just imagine, let us consider that this is the IP address of I am taking the example, this may not be a IP address of, let us consider that XYZ quad. XYZ.com is one of the website you want to visit, and from that website you want to retrieve certain information, and its IP address is given like that, 172. Let us say 121.16.2 or whatever may be. So this is what the example I am taking. So are you going to remember this 172.121.16.2, or is it easy to remember xyz.com? Obviously it is easy to remember xyz.com, but xyz.com is not understood by TCP/IP. So what it does, so your file transfer client will send the information of xyz.com over here to DNS client. DNS client send a query that xyz.com has been sent by the user, what is its IP address. So DNS server will look into its table, and whatever may be the associated IP address, that IP address will be sent in the form of response, and this will be sent to the TCP/IP, and then TCP/IP will know that okay, the IP address where I want to send the information, or from where I want to get the information is 172.121.16.2. This is how a DNS system works. Okay, so user wants to use the file transfer client to access the corresponding file transfer server running on a remote host. So the user knows only the file transfer server name, such as a file source.com, here in this case xyz.com. So however, the TCP suite needs the IP address to transfer the files to make the connection, and these following 6 steps are followed to get an IP address. So user passes the host name to the file transfer client. The file transfer client passes the host name to DNS client. The DNS client will send, so each computer after booting knows the address of DNS server. So DNS server will take this information from the client in the form of query, and the DNS server sends the response with the IP address of the desired file transfer server. Then DNS server passes the IP address to the file transfer client, and file transfer client now uses the received IP address to access the file transfer server. So this is how actually the connection takes place, and you will be able to access the data. The connection needs to be made between the DNS client and DNS server. So we have already seen how to make the connections and how to the connection will take place. So here we'll need 2 connections. In this case, the first is for mapping the name to IP address, and second is for transferring the files. That means first connection you need to establish for mapping of name to IP, and second connection you need to establish for transferring the data. Okay. Now next, the namespace. The concept related to DNS is namespace. Now what do you mean by namespace? A namespace that maps each address to a unique name that can be organized in two ways. First one is a flat and second one is a hierarchical. Now what is a flat namespace? Flat namespace, a name is assigned to an address, and a name in this space is a sequence of characters without any structure. It doesn't have any structure. Now if I said xyz.com, and no any other structure is there, then in that case this is a flat naming type of structure or flat namespace. Okay. Now hierarchical structure, in XYZ itself, if there are subdomains, let us consider that XYZ is the name of the organization. XYZ is the name of organization, and that organization are having the different department. Let us say finance department is there. So what will happen to that one? In hierarchical, the first part defines the nature of the organization. So this will define the nature of the organization. The second part defines the name of the organization. So what is that? So let us consider that there is a first name. Let us say in our case it is finance. Okay, finance, or fin, will simply say fin.xyz.com. So what is that? So the first part, this part will tell you the nature of the organization. So it is a company. Then second part will tell you the name of the organization, and the third part will define the department of the organization. So the fin will represent the finance department of XYZ company, and this is how you can put a hierarchical namespace in several parts. So in finance again there might be a different types are there, or different portals are there, sub domains are there, that also you can add to this system. So this is how the hierarchical namespace came into existence. But the main disadvantage of the flat name system is that it cannot be used in a large system, such that internet, if you are using it, and it needs to be centrally controlled to avoid the ambiguity and duplications. So the problem is that a flat system is there, then in that case it need to be centrally controlled. But here you can control it domain wise, here you can control it subdomain wise also. So hierarchical namespace is very important in that frame. So central authority can assign the part of the name that defines the nature of the organization and name of the organization. So it is the central authority who is assigning the name and the nature of the organization. So tomorrow I cannot start directly in my name asvibhute.com. Sorry, it is not possible. It is not possible. So I have to register it to the central authority. Central authority will see that whether this name is assigned to any other company or not. Then in that case, if it is not assigned, then I'll get that access. Otherwise, I'll not get that name. So for that purpose, I'll be requiring this information. So central authority can assign the part of the name and nature of the organization and the name of the organization. Okay. So the responsibility for the rest of the name can be given to the organization itself. So in hierarchical system, only xyz.com will be given by the central authority who is assigning the domain names to the company or organization. Then thereafter, whatever may be the subdomains are there or subdivisions are there, that names you can assign it. That means FIN that I can assign, or organization can assign itself on their own. This is how a hierarchical namespace works. Okay. Now domain namespace. What do you mean by namespace? We have already seen. What do you mean by domain namespace? So domain namespace, to have a hierarchical namespace, a domain namespace was designed. That means there are certain domains which cannot have a same namespaces Okay, so we need to divide it into different domains, such as, let us consider that if institute is educational, or organization is a educational organization, then in that case that is a different domain. If a company is a service company, that domain is totally different. If a company is a, or organization is a manufacturing company, that domain is totally different. If a company is a medical sector, that or domain is a separate domain. So accordingly there are different domains according to their nature of work, according to their working content, working style. The domains are formed, and in that domain again the subdomains are formed depending on the working of that group or working of that department. Okay, so the names are defined and inverted tree space. So it is a inverted tree structure where you can put this kind of structure, and which is connected to the root. So root is a central system which is having a null characters. So the tree can have maximum 128 levels, so up to 128 levels, from 0th level to 127th level you can have your own design. So this is how a domain namespace comes out. So this is a root, this is a root. To this, this is a domain name you are connected with, and to this, so if I say this is a company type of structure, so the extension will be .com, the extension will be of that one .com. Okay, now the company, this will get a name which will be given by the central authority, so I'll say XYZ. Okay, so I'll say XYZ. Okay, now in that previously we have seen a finance department is there, so it may have a finance department. So this finance will come with this one. So the address at this moment here at this point will be fin.xyz.com. In that finance again there are two departments or more than departments, again that can be divided into two parts. So first one is the cash flow or cash otherwise other type of any finance system they might be having. Then you can have a different type of cashflow.fin.xyz.com. So this is what the information you will get, or this is what the name you will get for this one. So this is a inverted tree, this is a inverted tree, and this is the hierarchical structure, and domain namespace came into existence for this hierarchical namespace. So what do you mean by label? There are certain concepts, or there are certain terminologies that are associated with this DNS. So first one is the label. So what do you mean by label? So label is a string with a maximum of 63 characteristics, and root label is a null string. So root doesn't have any string. Then the DNS requires a children of a node have a different labels which guarantees the uniqueness of the domain names. So previously we have seen that cashflow.finance .fin.xyz.com. So this is a unique name. So even though finance and cash flow are the children of XYZ, but it is having a unique name of that DNS. So that label is unique. That means cashflow.fin.xyz.com. So that is a unique label that we have given. Then the domain name, each node in the tree has a domain name. So domain name is a sequence of labels separated by dots. So .com and the followed by that one domain name is com means it is a company. Okay, it is a company. And what is a domain? Domain is a subtree of the domain namespace. That means XYZ, then fin, then cash flow. So these are the domains in that .com. So XYZ is the organization name, fin is the department, and sub department cash flow is of fin. So this is how you'll be getting the domain. Then this is how the structure gets connected. I have told you this is a challenger. Okay, the label is challenger, but challenger is a part of whom? The challenger is a part of ATC, but ATC is a part of FHDA. Okay, FHDA is a part of EDU. Okay, so this is a domain name. This is a domain name for this level. This is a domain name for this level. This is a domain name for this level, fhda.edu. This is a domain name for a department in FHDA, atc.fhda.edu, and this is the domain name for challenger.ate.fhda.edu. We have already discussed it in previous example. Okay, so this is how the domain names and labels are given. So I think you have understood the concept of domain name. Now this is how the domain actually takes place. So you can see that again how the domains are subdivided into other parts. So .com is a separate domain, edu is a separate domain, other domains are also there. So .com is a company type of structure. Then in that again it gets divided into subdomains and domains and zones also. So this is how a domain's structure works. Okay, so the information contained in a domain namespace must be stored. So it must be stored, and it is very inefficient and also not reliable to have just one computer to store such a huge information. So all these information, so worldwide you can just imagine how many such domains will be there, and if all this information will be stored on a single PC, or a central authority is having only a single PC, then just imagine what will happen. The system will become very inefficient and it will not be reliable to have such kind of huge information. So what can be done? So the solution is to have a DNS servers for particular domain. To have a DNS servers for particular domain. Now how can you get it? So one way to get it, divide the whole space into many domains at first level. Then we let the first standalone system and create a many domains under that first level node, and this DNS allows the domains to be divided into further subdomains or smaller domains. So each server can be responsible for either large or small domains, isn't it? So this is how actually you can say that. Here it is a main root server. To that, let us consider that EDU is a domain. So EDU will have its own server. So to that, another the domains FHDA is one institute, BK is another institute. So such servers will again attach to this EDU server, and this EDU server is connected to the root server. So this is a distributed system of the name. That's why it is called as a hierarchical system. So you can have such kind of system. Here in case of com server, you can see that this is a mcgraw.com and irwin.com, such kind of system is there. So these two names are different and these two servers are different, and you can have such kind of system. Okay, then according to name also you will have a name of the country. According to that also you have a server, and you can develop a domain. Now let us see how you can whenever you are saying that DNS is used in the internet, let us try to understand how many domains are there. Okay, so we can divide the domains in basically three categories: inverse domain, generic domain, and country domain. So mostly we are familiar with this generic and country domains. So what is that generic domain and country domain? Let us try to understand it. Okay, this is what the generic domain is. Okay, this is what the generic domain is. AERO means it is related with the aerospace, biz means it is related with the business, com means it is related with the company, COOP it is related with another. EDU is related with educational. GOV means it is a governmental government institutions. Info means it is for only information, and so on. MIL means military. Name means net.org. Org means it is a non-profit organization. So let us try to understand. So business or firm, airlines, commercial organization. Commercial organization means it works for a profit. Then cooperative organization, EDU, government institutions, information service providers, international organization, then military groups, museums, personal names. So you can have your own personal name domain also, that is also quite possible. Then network support system, net centers are there. So you might be coming across such kind of systems, something.net, something.org. So non-profit organization and professional organization. So these are the few examples of generic domains and which are familiar. So you are mostly familiar with this kind of domains. First .com, gov, edu, then info. You are familiar with this one. You are familiar with .net. You are familiar with .org. So you have came across all these type of domain names which are generic domain names labels. Okay, labels. Now country domains. So according to country also you can have your own domains. Okay. Now the most example, our college name is sweri.ac.in, www.sweri.ac.in. Now Sweri is the name of the company, AC means it is an academic institution, and .in means it is in India. Okay, so this is how you will be getting the information. So it is a root level, and here you have an abbreviation of your company, of your country. So .us, .uk, you have came across such kind of abbreviations. So this is how the example will come. Hansa is the company name, CUP is that one, .ca is another company which is in US. So US will tell you, okay, this is from United States. For India, this is .in. For India, this is .in. Okay, so this is how you can again subdivide the domains into area wise or the country wise. So that is called as a country domains. Okay. Now name servers, we have already seen how the names are. So DNS space is divided into non-overlapping zones. So each zone has a name server holding the information about it, and we have already seen this kind of structure. So you may have a generic structure, you may have a country or a combination of these. That is also quite possible. So the best example is if you are going to the mhcet.gov.in. Okay, this is what the example you will be getting. That means MHCET is related with the Maharashtra State Central Entrance Exam. GOV means it is a government institution, and .in means it is in India. Okay, so government is a generic name and country, that combination is also quite possible. Okay, now DNS message. So how actually this DNS message looks like, let us try to understand it. So to retrieve the information about the host, DNS uses the two types of messages. First one is the query. In query you will be sending the names, and in response you will be getting the IP address. Okay, so this is how the DNS message looks like. It is having the information identification followed by a flag, then the number of question records, the number of answer records, the number of authoritative records, and the number of additional records. And thereafter question section is there, answer section is there, authoritative section is there, and additional section is there. Okay, so these first 16 bits is for identification, next 16 bits are used for the flags, and then after that the next 2 bytes are used for the records, answer records, question records, authoritative records, and additional records. So the query message contains only the question sections. It will simply questions it. The response message includes the question section also. So the response messages are includes the questions and answer section, and possibly the 2 other sections also. That means question section will have only question, whereas the response may contain the question, it may contain the answer, or it may contain the authoritative or additional section also. Now identification field is used by the client to match the response with a query. So you have to match this response identification field with a query. So the flag field defines whether the message is a query or a response. So it also includes the status of the error. So flag will tell you whether this is a query or a response, and you'll get the information related to that one. Okay. Now the next 4 bits will define in the header the number of each record type of the message. So the question section consists one or more questions records. It presents in both an query and response messages. The answer section consists one or more resource records. It present only in response message. The authoritative section gives you the information about one or more authoritative servers for the query. So if there are more servers are there, so that information will be provided by this authoritative section, and additional information will provide you the additional information that may help you to resolve this query and response. Okay, so this is how the DNS works. So I hope you have understood how exactly the names are assigned and on what basis the names are assigned to a particular organization on the basis of their working profiles. So this is how the names are assigned by the DNS system, and you will simply remember the name instead of remembering the IP address, and this DNS will help you to map this name to IP address with the help of DNS client and DNS server. Hope I think you have understood this. Now we'll move to the next important part that is associated with this type of mapping, but it is in the case of IPv4. Now we know that most of the time whenever the TCP IP connection is there, IP is very important. So one more protocol that is called as the DHCP, that is also very important as far as IP address assignments or mapping is concerned. So BootTP or Bootstrap protocol is a client server protocol that is designed to provide a physical address to logical address. We have already seen a concept of ARP and RARP, which are associated with internet protocol at third layer. So Bootstrap is another client server protocol which is designed for mapping the physical address to logical address, and is an application layer protocol. So this is used at application layer protocol, but Bootstrap has a problem that it is not a dynamic, it is a static. So you need to first write, okay, this is what the name is, or this is what the physical address is, this is what the IP address is. So that table you need to maintain it. So Bootstrap will help you to maintain that table, and but it is a static one. Now the problem is that if you want to make it a dynamic means whenever the IP address is not that physical address is given, then you should be able to retrieve its logical address automatically, or you should be able to assign the logical address automatically, IP address automatically. So that is not possible with Bootstrap. So to overcome this problem, a dynamic host configuration protocol, that is DHCP, has been devised. So what is DHCP? DHCP provides both the facilities, static and dynamic allocation, but most probably it provides you the dynamic address. So most of the time whenever you are putting in your system obtained IP address automatically. So DHCP will came into existence, and DHCP will help you to map your IP address to your local address, physical address. So manually also you can put, so that becomes a static one, but if it is automatically, it becomes a dynamic address allocation. So static address, we have, it is similar to the bootstrap protocol, so we are not going to see it, but dynamic we are interested in. So dynamic address allocation, DHCP has a second database with a pool of available IP addresses, and second database makes DHCP dynamic. So there are two databases. So DHCP will have that second database, and DHCP will look into that database whether this IP address has been assigned to someone or not. If it is not assigned, then it will assign that IP address to the demand from the client. So client will demand for a temporary IP address, and this temporary IP address will be assigned to that one. So this is what the work done by the dynamic address allocation. So when DHCP clients request a temporary IP address, so DHCP server goes to the pool that of unavailable IP address, assign the IP address for a negotiable period. So that IP address is not assigned to the client for a permanent basis. It is a temporary. That means as soon as the connection gets established, that IP address will be assigned to it, and as soon as the connection gets closed, the IP address will be again restored back to the server. So that IP is not permanently assigned to the client. So once the connection is closed, that IP address will not be assigned to the same machine again. Whenever the next time the connection is established, the same machine may get a different IP address. That's why it is called as a dynamic. Okay, so when a DHCP client sends a request to the DHCP server, the server first checks in its static database whether this IP address has been assigned to someone or not. If it is assigned, that means it is a static database, and that address is a fixed IP address, permanent address. So I cannot assign the same address to that machine. Then I'll go to the second database where all this pool is there, and through that pool, whatever may be the IP addresses are available and which are not assigned, then it will take one of the IP address and it will return it to the client. This is how actually the dynamic address allocation took place. Okay, now the dynamic is needed. Now let us consider that why these dynamic aspects are needed. So let us consider that your machine is connected in LAN 1 and you move to the LAN 2 in the same organization. Now in LAN 1, if your IP address is static, you cannot move to with the same IP address in the second LAN, because we have seen the concept of subnet masking, subnetting, right? That is a classless addressing type of systems. So we have gone through that one. So the same IP address cannot be assigned to the the same machine in a another LAN. So that is what the problem is. So if the IP address is not assigned, and if it is kept as a dynamic one, and even if I move the machine from one LAN to another LAN, this DHCP will help you to get the IP address automatically. So this will solve the problem of moving the your terminals or your devices from one network to other network. That is why your mobile is a device which moves from one network to another network. Still you are able to access and the network. So as soon as you get connected to the network, to your internet service provider, you will be assigned with the IP address, and as soon as you will be assigned the IP address, you will remain with that IP address till you are logged in, till you are accessing the data. And as soon as you close down your connection, that IP address will be terminated, and whenever you log in to the next time, you will get a new IP address. So this allocation is already is available with all the that DHCP servers, and that DHCP server will take care of that one. Okay, so DHCP provides the temporary IP address for a limited time. So manual and automatic configuration. So manual configuration, that means you have to type the static address to that machine. So whenever that machine will be shifted to other, you have to again reconfigure it manually. But if it is automatic one, it becomes a dynamic. That means only you obtain it temporary and you move the machine to the other machine, other LAN. Again, the IP address will be assigned automatically. So this is how the automatic configuration is there. So DHCP is an application layer program using a client server paradigm, usually helps TCP IP net at network layer. Even though this mapping has been done at network layer, but this DHCP is a application layer program. So this DHCP will help you actually making the connections with TCP IP. Okay, so the DHCP found such a widespread use in internet. It is often called as plug and play protocol. So DHCP is a plug and play. Why it is plug and play? I can move the system from one, so it is a plugging, and if I put it in another network, that means I am plugging it again and playing with a. So plug and play, that means you remove and again put it. So that is plug and play type of system. So the best example of plug and play is your mouse. The plug and play is your pen drives. So all these are plug and play devices. So similarly, whenever you are plugging in your computer system to a network, it will automatically assign the DHCP IP address through DHCP. So DHCP is also known as plug and play protocol. So 4 pieces of the information are normally needed for this kind of information. So what is needed? First one is the computer address. So, second one is the prefix. Then address of the router and the IP address of the name server. So these 4 informations are required if you want to communicate with each other, and DHCP will make this information available to the host. That is why the DHCP is very important. Now we'll see how the DHCP will look like, how the format is. Let us try to understand. This is what the DHCP format. The first 8 bit are for opcode. So opcode, where first you have to decide whether it is a request or whether it is a reply, and according to that this opcode is maintained. Then what kind of hardware type you are using, whether it is a Ethernet, whether it is a token bus, or whether it is other type of system, that you need to mention over here. Then hardware length, address length, you have to mention in HELN. Then maximum number of hops that a packet can travel through the network, that count you have to mention here. Then transaction ID, it is an integer set by the client and repeated by the server. So it is just like a banking sector. A transaction ID is generated by the bank, and this transaction ID will be helpful for you to understand what kind of transaction you have taken place. So the time elapsed. So time elapsed is the number of seconds since the client started to boot. And the flags will tell you the first bit defines the unicast, or it is a multiple cast, and next 15 bits are not used. So if it is a 0, first bit is a 0, it is a unicast, and if it is a 1, then it is a multicast. Unicast means 1 to 1, multicast means 1 to many. Then client IP address, that means the server you are trying to find it out, whose IP address, that IP address you need to mention over here. It is set to 0 if the client does not know it. So you first put it 0. Then your IP address, so that IP address sent by the server. Then the gateway IP address. So gateway IP address is the address of the default router through which you will be sending this information. Then the server name. So it is a 64 byte server name of the server. Then boot name, boot file name, it is a 128 byte name that is holding the extra information. And option is a 64 byte field with dual purpose that described in a text. Now what is that dual purpose? Let us try to understand. The 64 byte option field has a dual purpose. So it can carry the additional information in specific vendor information. What is that? An option is composed in three fields. So first one is the first 1 byte tag field, 1 byte length field, and a variable length value field. So you will look like the information in this information. So there are several tags fields that are widely used by various vendors. So the tag field is 53. The value field defined one of the 8 message types are. So you can see the different messages that are put in option format. So option formats: 1 DHCP discover, 2 DHCP offer, 3 DHCP request, 4 DHCP decline. So here you can see that this is a 53 tag is there, followed by the length and followed by the value. So this value will tell you what kind of activity you are going to carry out. Okay, this is what you will be getting: acknowledgement, non-acknowledgement, release and inform. Okay, so request is there, release is there, decline is there, inform is there, offer is there, acknowledgement is there, not acknowledgement is there, discover is there. Now how actually communication takes place with the help of DHCP, just try to understand with the help of this diagram. So this is the operation of, so it will ask for the IP address. Okay, what is the IP address? Then what we'll do, this client will send a DHCP discover information. This client will send a DHCP discover information. So transaction ID is 1001. 1001 is the transaction ID, and it will go to this one, and IP address is this one. Now this IP address is not known, so it is not written over here. You can see that the IP address is not known, so this is not mentioned over here. Now what is that? The transaction ID remains same. It will offer, now it will be a DHCP offer. So it will give the information, lease time is 3600. The client address is not known, but my the IP address that you have asked is the IP address, this one. So this IP address is here, and server IP address is mentioned, sorry, and the server IP address is there. So that server IP address is mentioned over here, and the IP address you have been asked, that IP address is mentioned over here. So the source port is 62, destination port is 68. The source address is this IP address of the server, and the destination address is 255.255. So this is mentioned over here. Now the IP address is not known to me. So this IP address, which is assigned by this DHCP, now this IP address has been used by this client. Okay, initially this IP address is not known. Now this IP address has been assigned. So DHCP requests will be sent to this one, and acknowledgement you will get it from this one, and this is how you will get the complete information about this one, and this is how the DHCP operation takes place. Okay, I hope you have understood the concept.